Welcome to Bible Prophecy Now with Rabbi Joe Bell. In this program, Rabbi Bell presents a clearer understanding of prophecies, past, present, and future. In this time of utter confusion and dread, tune in to Bible Prophecy Now with Rabbi Joe Bell for greater insights of the truth of God's Word and God's prophetic timing. Now join us and let's learn together. And now, Rabbi Joe Bell.
Well, shalom. This is Rabbi Joe. Welcome to Bible Prophecy Now on Living Faith Television. I am blessed to be here with you today. I hope you've been enjoying the series that we reran on the beast, because things are moving very quickly, friends, in the world, and things are moving quickly with Russia, and the beast is moving. And if you followed my programs, you would understand, if you go back and watch the last two programs, or you can go to For Zion's Sake on YouTube. Go to For Zion's Sake on YouTube, and you can watch the last two shows on the beast. There's a two-part series. And basically, the conclusion that God gave me is that the United Nations is the beast. And the beasts, and now there's several beasts, but the main beast of Revelation 13 and Daniel chapter 7. If you read Daniel 7 and verse 1, and we can look there for a second here. It says, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head while on his bed. Then he wrote down the dream, telling the main facts. Daniel spoke, saying, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea, and four great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I watched till its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on the 2 feet like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And suddenly another beast, a second like a bear, it was raised up, and on one side it had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth, and they said thus to it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I looked, and there was another like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, the 4th beast was so dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong, and it had huge iron teeth. It was devouring and breaking in pieces and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. And so we see, here's Daniel is an end-time prophet. You have to understand that when you read Daniel, a lot of people like to say, well, the prophecies that I've been giving you in Daniel 8, which we're going to talk about in a moment, but that the prophecies I've been giving you are talking about Alexander the Great. But here we see Daniel in chapter 7 giving us the beast of Revelation 13. And he goes on, and he says in verse 13, he says, I was watching in the night visions, and behold, one like a son of man coming in the clouds of heaven. He came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. That's Jesus coming back. And that's the white throne judgment. And the books were open, the book of life and the book of deeds. Your deeds and my deeds, the book of words, things that you and I said. We're going to be judged for all of those things. The things we said, the things are the book of thoughts. We're going to be judged on our thoughts. We're going to be judged on our the things, our actions, the book of deeds, and the book of words, the things that we say. So there's many books, and in Revelation, in Daniel chapter 12, the angel Gabriel says to Daniel, seal up the books, not just the book of life, but seal up all the books, Daniel. So there's only 2 prophets in the Bible end-time prophets who actually dealt with the books, the book of life, the book of deeds, the book of thoughts, the book of words, your words and my words. And those prophets are Daniel and St. John, John the Revelator, the Apostle John. He, in John chapter 20, again at the white throne judgment, we see the books are opened again. And that's at the second resurrection. Now that's a story for another day. We'll talk about the second resurrection and the first resurrection. But today, so I want to just talk a little bit about the beast and, what's happening in the earth. So the beast is not an animal. It is a confederation of nations. And perhaps we can put up on the screen the colorful beast that was given in November of 2020, 2021, I believe it was, to the United Nations. And it was an image from Mexico. It was a statue of the beast, and it had the body of a leopard, and it had the feet of the bear, of the grizzly bear, and it had the face of the lion, and it had the wings of an eagle, okay? And it had so it had all these things. So I looked up the creatures that made up the primary creatures, and I did a message called The Beast Made Simple, or The Beast for Dummies. And anyway, I looked up all these animals, and I saw that the bear, the brown bear, is Russia. It's every nation has a beast, has an animal that represents it, and the leopard is the Persian leopard, okay, and that's so it represents Iran, the leopard, and the lion has in ancient times represented the Babylon, but today the lion represents England. Now, I've been waiting. I've seen Iran act ever since Vladimir Putin in 2022, when he went to China to meet with Xi Jinping in January during the Olympics, the Winter Olympics of China, to seek the blessing of the dragon. And who is the dragon? The dragon is China, and that's the animal the beast that represents China, that was so horrifying to Daniel that he got sick. He couldn't even look at it. And that dragon is Satan. It says in Revelation 12:9 that the dragon is the serpent of old, otherwise known as Satan. And so just as Jesus came as a Jewish man on earth, in the same way, when Satan falls to earth, demons inhabit bodies. They always look for a body to live in, okay? And they attach themselves. Did you ever see those little kind of fish that swim under sharks? Or sometimes they even attach themselves to a big shark and they get towed along. Well, that's kind of like what demons do. They attach themselves to beings, to people, and maybe to animals. And so anyway, Jesus, the story of the demoniac in the Bible, when Jesus was across the lake, and this wild man was going crazy, and the Lord cast the demons out of him, and he cast them into a herd of swine, a herd of pigs. And then those pigs, they ran into the lake and drowned. So, they ran into the Sea of Galilee, and they drowned in the Sea of Galilee. Okay, so if demons need to inhabit a body, wouldn't it make sense? And the Lord Jesus Christ, Yeshua the Messiah, came to earth, and he inhabited, God came as a man, in a body, okay? It was 100%, he is 100% man, and he's a Jewish man, and he's 100% God, right? Okay, he's 100% man, and he's 100% God. And in the same way, when Satan comes down to earth, when he falls to earth, he inhabits a body. And where does he go? He goes to China. And he inhabits the leaders of China. And maybe one dies, so then he goes to the next one. But the point of it is that China represents the dragon. And so in 2022, when Vladimir Putin went to war, before he went to war with Ukraine, he went to China to seek the blessing of Xi Jinping. Okay? And Xi Jinping said, by all means, you can go to war with Ukraine. Just wait till the Olympics are over. In other words, let us finish our Olympics, and then you can go to war with Ukraine, which has been going on since the winter of 2022. Yeah, it's been 4 years. 4 years this war in Ukraine has been going on. Okay, so it's terrible what's happening in Ukraine. It's just horrible. Over 1 million people have died, probably on both sides. And Russia has lost over 1 million men. And they're just in a terrible position. And there's a false teaching going on out there that says that what's happening right now is that the stars are aligning for the battle of Gog and Magog. You've probably heard this in prophecy teachings online, that things are being made ready for the battle of Gog and Magog. That's not true, okay? Because in order for Russia, which is the lead country in the battle of Gog and Magog in Ezekiel 38 and 39, in order for Russia to lead, Russia has to be strong. And so let's talk about this for a second. What is Russia seeking? What have they got from this war? They've got the eastern, I don't know if Aaron has a map of Ukraine during the war, of the area that Russia, I think he has a little map that I may have sent him that shows what's called the Donbass region in eastern Ukraine, and it's marked like in red, whereas the rest of Ukraine is controlled by the Ukrainians. The Donbass region is controlled largely by Russia. And why is that region important? Well, that region is important because if you go to the top of it, it's just south of Moscow. And so if Russia wants to build a railroad, which I believe they already have, and a highway from Moscow down to the Black Sea, they need that strip of land in eastern Ukraine called the Donbass region. They need that strip. They need to possess that area of land so that they can transport troops, missiles, jets, you name it, weapons, tanks, soldiers, down to the Black Sea. And once they transport all those things down to the Black Sea to Crimea, and they went to war with Ukraine back in 2014, the Russians did, and they in 2014 they took the area known as Crimea. Crimea is a territory that has a port on the Black Sea. So Russia needed a port. Okay, they needed a seaport on the Black Sea. So they took it in 2014, and there's a port there called Sevastopol. And so the Russians took that port, but they had no way to get to it by land. There was no road. Ukraine controlled all the land around it. And so Russia has conquered that eastern portion of land above Crimea where the Sevastopol port is. And now Russia can ship tanks and guns and planes and soldiers and trucks and war trucks and war vehicles and you name it, down to the Black Sea. Here's the problem. Russia doesn't have an army left. They have no soldiers anymore because Ukraine killed them all, okay? And so Putin has had a big dilemma, because here's the dilemma that he has. If you kill 1 million young men, if you have an army of 1 million is a big army for any country. And Russia is not as big as the Soviet Union. It's one country. It's a good-sized country, but it's not as nearly as big as the Soviet Union used to be. So when you kill 1 million Russian young men of fighting age, you're also killing men who are factory workers. And so Russia has to make a decision. Are we going to use these men who are our resources, our national treasure, our human resources, to build in factories, to work in factories and make weapons, make munitions, make planes, make bombs, make AI stuff, whatever? Or are we going to send them off to the battlefield? And so Putin has been spending money hiring mercenaries to fight and bringing in people from other countries to fight Ukraine. And now there's hardly any war going on, like battle, like tanks and, armies facing each other. Now it's all drones and missiles. And the Ukrainians have lost all their young men. They lost all their men from probably the age of 18 when the war started to the age of, 35. They lost all their fighting age men. Most of them have died. And so now in 4 years, young men who were 15 4 years ago are now 19. So now they have a new crop of young soldiers, but they're not really experienced. And the war has transitioned from a war of facing each other and on the battlefield to a war of firing drones and missiles. And so you hear in the news, Russia's been launching these huge hypersonic missiles at Ukraine and killing thousands of civilians, tens of thousands. And nobody ever accuses Russia of genocide, even though they kill civilians, and they've killed hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians just shooting them in the back of the neck and the back of the head, or shooting them in the back and then dumping them in the forest into a big pit, just like the Nazis used to do. Nobody's accuse Israel of genocide, but you don't see anybody or the United Nations accusing Russia of genocide, or China, who has killed millions of people. They killed Buddhists in Nepal. They've killed the Uyghurs, which is a foreign group that lives in China that they've been persecuting horribly, the Chinese. And nobody accuses China of committing genocide. But this is what's going on. So why can't this be about Gog and Magog right now? Russia is not prepared to go to war with Israel. It would take Russia at least 10 years, I would, to rebuild their army, to rebuild their weaponry, and to send, even their navy on the Black Sea has been sunk by the Ukrainians. What Russia didn't bargain for was that Ukraine was going to be so brilliant at building drones. And the Ukrainians are magnificent drone builders. And they've built these weaponized drones that have destroyed Russian oil facilities. They have like toy boats almost. They're like 5-foot-long boats with powerful engines that hold 150 pounds of plastic explosives. And they launch those boats, those drones, ocean water drones, into the side of a ship, and they've sunk the entire Russian fleet of the Black Sea. That means Russia has to rebuild all their ships in the Black Sea. They have no ships. And how on earth is Russia going to bring weapons and soldiers? They don't have any tanks left. Their tanks were all blown off the map by the Ukrainians. Their soldiers were all killed, mostly. And all they have are rockets. So what are they doing? If you look in the news, they're firing rockets at cities like Kiev and Odessa and just into apartment buildings and just killing willy-nilly whoever they can hit. That's what they're doing. And so Russia is nowhere near ready to fight the battle of Gog and Magog. So if we're not near the battle of Gog and Magog, what does that mean? Then it means that something else is going on, right? So we've seen, let's review the beast as we sit here today. So let's look in Revelation 13 and see what the beast looks like in Revelation 13. Now, Revelation 13, it tells us in verse 1, "Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns." Okay, so Revelation 17, 12 tells us that a horn is a king. So this beast has 10 horns. The beast of Revelation, the main beast, has 10 horns. And those horns represent 10 kings, okay? And the ocean, the sea, represents the multitude of the Gentiles, of the nations, all right? So the sea in prophecy represents the nations, the multitudes of the Gentiles, all right? And he says, "I saw a beast rising out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his head a blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard," just like in Daniel 7, a leopard. "His feet were like the feet of a bear," Russia, "and his mouth like the mouth of a lion." I believe that's England, is the lion today, in our generation. "And the dragon gave him his power." That's China. Where did Putin go to get the blessing to attack Ukraine? He went to China. "And the dragon gave him his power, his throne, and his great authority. And I saw one of his heads." So let's stop there for a second. Okay, so we just talked about, there's an alliance, it's called the BRICS Alliance, and the 3 or 4 main countries in the BRICS Alliance, the 3 or 4 of the main countries are Iran, Russia, China, and England was our greatest ally next to Israel. England was our greatest ally, but what has President Trump been? Why has President Trump been angry with England? Because England would not join us in fighting Iran. Even though England gets their oil, a great portion of their oil, come through the Straits of Hormuz, England and Europe would not back President Trump. And that's why President Trump wants to pull out of NATO. And that's why President Trump wants to pull out of the United Nations. He has no use for the United Nations. So why do we stay in the United Nations? If President Trump has no use for the United Nations, why does America stay in the United Nations? I'll tell you why. Because we have power. We are seated on the highest committees, like the UN Security Council. We have veto power. So when the UN says that Israel is committing genocide, the United States can veto that and stop the UN from prosecuting Israel for genocide against, Hamas, or against the people that live in Gaza. okay? And even though Israel has only just been attacked on October 7th, 2023, the equivalent of 50,000 Americans. If you were to, equivocate how many Israelis died on that attack on October 7th, it would be equal to 50,000 Americans. I ask you, what country would not go to war if 50,000 of their citizens were murdered or taken hostage? 40 babies were burned in a house. They put live babies in ovens and cooked them like turkeys. These sick people, these terrorists, Hamas, they took babies, and they put them in ovens and turned on the ovens and roasted them like turkeys. I mean, it's unbelievable. And then you have these people here in America accusing Israel of genocide. It's insanity. We're living in crazy times. And not only that, AI is here, and the stock market, trillions of dollars are being invested into AI, brothers and sisters. And that means that the mark of the beast is coming, and AI is going to change your life in ways that you and I can't even imagine. There's going to be robots. There's going to be all the things. If you watch, I'm not a big fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I waited till 2023 or 24 to watch Terminator. But I recommend that you watch Terminator only because I believe Arnold Schwarzenegger has a prophetic gift. He saw AI. He saw the coming of beings, of robots that would look like human beings and have supernatural strength to kill and destroy. And that's what's coming to the world. So anyway, this is where we're at. We're in a very precarious time, and the United States, the future. My friend Jonathan Cahn, and we're having a prophecy conference. I'm running out of time, but I want you to come to this prophecy conference at the Meadowview Conference Center on the 12th and 13th of June. Go to forzionssakeconference.com. For Zion's Sake, FORZIONSAKE conference.com, and sign up. I want you to come to this prophecy conference. You need to learn. You need to hear what the number one prophetic voice, Jonathan Cahn, in the world today has to say. All right. God bless. Come to the conference. Shalom.
You've been watching Bible Prophecy Now with Rabbi Joe Bell. Please join us next week at this same time and place for more regarding today's world events and prophecy. To contact Rabbi Bell, please go to www.forzionsake.org. Rabbi Bell's mailing address is For Zion's Sake Ministries, P.O. Box 1486, Bristol, Tennessee, 37620. Until next week, Shalom.